Like most people, they didn't know that Cillian Murphy first got to start out in 28 Days Later, that performed over 2 decades ago. A movie that was shot brilliantly well with an exceptional cast, had a good concept movie for zombies back then, before they got milked into oblivion, and was wrapping up nicely because you discovered that the infected at that time couldn't sustain themselves because they couldn't feed and would become extinct. Until the sequel in 2007. Yeah, sure, don't get me wrong, it wasn't as good as 28 Days Later, but you could appreciate it what it's worth. You got what you wanted out of it, and it felt pretty good. Kind of like hanging out with an ex-girlfriend. You knew what you were getting yourself into, but it was like, all right, well, since we're here. And then in 2024, they gave us 28 Years Later, which came into production, which we got before George R. R. Martin finished his next book. Don't worry, George, I'm sure he'll get there in the next 50 years. You're not going to be around that long.
Let's have some vibe.
I usually like to try and have a kind of a funny intro to my videos for you guys. I like to keep things lighthearted. It's always good to laugh at things. That's what I'd like to do. If I was going to sum up what was in 28 Years Later,
Hey, how's it going, bros? My name is PewDiePie! My name is PewDiePie!
Dude, no, I'm not kidding. So, that's it. Thanks for coming by. And, as always, until we meet again. Yeah, it's not funny, okay? There's definitely a lot of retconning that happens in this movie. Don't get me wrong, I wish some franchises would take advantage of this. But, unfortunately, 20 years later is not what I expected. But I will say, the standouts in this movie were exceptional, and the cast and the acting, as well as all the performances, was sensational. For me, top character in the movie was a young boy named Spike. Spike is played by a young actor named Alfie, who carries this movie on his shoulders. If you want to classify this movie as anything, it's a coming-of-age story, and Alfie, aka Spike, does a phenomenal job. But hey, I'm glad to see Ariana Grande got a few new roles after Wicked. Glad to see she put on a few pounds, too.
He's out of line, but he's right.
If it's the one thing the Americans know about the Brits is that they can handle themselves in a war. They're going to be separated and isolated from everyone else. Unless you're going to be one of the people that is going to be on an island, you don't want to go there. It's going to be a very dangerous place, which is a lot where the action happens in this movie. That is because Britain's going to be on its own during this movie. It's going to be centered around a young boy named Alfie, who's going to be separated on the UK, on an island, or he's going to have to visit like everyone else. Yes, and I know that this movie just came out. I'm going to try and keep it as spoiler-free as possible for you guys, but it's going to be a rite of passage for Spike to go out with his father, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, to try and go out and learn his life. But unfortunately, Alfie's going to have a mother who is very sick with an unknown illness, you see. But what do you think that illness is? But these are things that you're all going to understand. Going off the island for the first time is like a rite of passage. And this is one thing Alex Garland wanted to define to his viewers very well. If you recognize the name, he is from 28 Days Later, and he did a phenomenal job executing his performance. When you go off the island, especially with your father, yeah, you're going to see exactly what happens when you go off the island. But this is one thing, again, that Alex Garland wanted a lot of people to understand. Especially when you go off the island for the first time, you're going to see that the infected are not just a mindless group of zombies. They are able to show willingness to learn and understand things. Even with those willingness to learn and understand things alone, Spike decides to go on a solo trip, taking his mother to a reclusive island to see a doctor. But what Spike must also learn is that this doctor might not be all that he seems. This guy could be anybody, and it's not somebody that you should absolutely trust. This is one of the things that Spike does have to learn. Even though he finds somebody on the island, is it somebody that you're going to trust emphatically? The cast, as I said earlier, is already doing a great job. Jodie Comer does play Spike's mother, and you're going to see what's really happening with her once she gets to see this doctor on the island. Yeah, she might be ill, but what she's going to come down with and what this doctor's going to do, you're just not going to expect. I don't think anybody in the crowd did. I know that's not going to make a lot of sense with this being a spoiler-free review, but let me know in the comment section below. Do I need to do a spoiler review of 28 Years Later? Because there's a lot to unpack in this ending that a lot of people are not going to expect or understand. It is nice to see Alex Garland and Danny Boyle come back together to work on a movie again. They did this together with 28 Days Later, and you can feel some of their comparisons when they came back. They do work very well together, but unfortunately, this is just going to come back to the writing issue on this movie. The ending is going to have a lot of people confused on what's going to be happening on the direction that it's going. But if you know anything about this, it does set up to have another movie made out of it. I don't think we need to make this into some kind of cinematic universe, but this movie does need to have an ending at some point. You can only carry these movies on for so long about zombies and dead people and just walking all over the place.
Really?
And I think that's one of the more important parts of this movie. A boy who's having to come of age in a world that nobody should even be alive in. A boy that is forced to become a man at an age that he shouldn't even be having to think about. But when you're in a world of zombies and a post-apocalyptic world set up, isolated from the rest of the world, it's going to be a pretty interesting concept. And I think they did that very well. Performances are very good in this movie, and the plot armor is thick as well for a lot of characters, and it's going to be noticeable when you watch this movie. But fortunately, it's not going to be a deal breaker. It's still something I'm going to recommend for people to see, even though this is going to lead directly into another one. But let's face it, we all know who's going to be directing that one. And yeah, without getting into too much of spoilers here, I know I can't say too much, but all I can say is, what did you think about the 28 years legacy? We'll leave it at that. I do recommend, even though, that you do go see this movie. Let me know in the comment section below. What is your favorite? Thank you all so much for watching. Like this video, share this video. And I do have to say, 28 years later is a win.
You will live. You will live.
Thank you all so much for watching. And as always, until we meet again.